So I actually think that Atypical does so much right, not just with autism, but with the effects that it can have on other members of the family. So the parents, we see these two very different coping styles. We see the dad, first he's denial, doesn't want to accept the doctor's diagnosis, and then we actually see retreat and him running away from the family. With the mom, it's completely the opposite. She just immerses herself, learning everything she can about it, going to support groups, trying all these different therapies, equine therapy with horses, and what it goes a step further though, and it actually shows how with these overprotective, smothering parents, not only do they kind of prevent their kids from really growing up, and you see the mother of Sam on the show doesn't really want her son to go out and, really become an adult, wants to keep him dependent on her, but also you see she's also not really fully developed, and she's kind of a kid at heart. So with these kind of overprotective parents, sometimes there's a kind of arrested development on both sides of the relationship, which is really interesting. Now, the sister on the show, the sister of Sam, she's in this horrible position where not only do all the parents' attention go to the person with autism, with the disability, so they feel this kind of like lack of attention, feeling unloved, but if they ever feel bad about that, they feel this huge guilt because one, they should feel lucky because they're the one who doesn't have to deal with this, and they should be happy about that. And also, they can't get mad at their parents too much because they're just giving attention where it needs to go. And if you feel bad about it, you're just being selfish. So not only do you feel neglected and unloved, but you feel completely guilty if you ever give any kind of voice to those feelings. Now, as far as its actual portrayal of autism, it gets criticism on both ends. Some people say Sam is such a monster and he's so rude and he's such a jerk, this is going to scare off anyone from ever dating or interacting with someone with autism. But then other people say Sam's too perfect. He's kind of this idealized, mythical version of someone with a disability that doesn't really exist, and he should be way more flawed. So I feel like the show can't win either way, but it does a lot well. And some of the main traits I really liked their presentation when Sam self-harms. Sometimes it's portrayed on TV as, you self-harm because you hate yourself and you have such low self-esteem and you want to punish yourself, you think you deserve punishment. But here I thought it was a better portrayal where you feel very overwhelmed and very out of control. And self-harm, it's kind of ritual. We hear a lot of talk about rituals and a kind of way of grounding yourself and calming yourself down. And then regarding Sam being very blunt and sometimes rude and sometimes hurting people's feelings, it's really interesting. The show even says at one point, neurotypicals, they add this extra layer of meaning on top of things that in some sense isn't really there. And you wonder with Sam, with his obsessions and his interest in things and places, numbers, these things that don't really change, whereas interpersonal relationships, they're just in constant flux, constant changing, there's never hard and fast rules. And so interesting with Sam, almost the complete opposite of someone who's a sensation seeker and constantly wants to travel, meet new people, try new things. With Sam, it's almost the reverse, where very easily overwhelmed by new stimuli, doesn't need a lot of interaction, only needs a few people that he's close with, only needs to talk about and study and be interested in a few of his passions, and very much likes a routine and repetition and having a home that he spends a lot of time in, kind of a home base. And that's a trait that I think doesn't get explored a lot, this kind of inability to deal with ambiguity, change, and spontaneity. And then as for what we can do socially in season 2, some really good proposals. One, educating first responders better to understand these issues, but in season 1 it was really interesting. At the school dance, everyone has headphones and everyone's getting the music pumped in through their headphones. So for people who are overwhelmed by sound, they can still go to the dance, and theoretically everyone can still listen to the music and still dance. But it's so interesting and topical because things like Google Glass, virtual reality, AR, augmented reality, wearable technology, these things are getting bigger and bigger. So how feasible can everyone, what if everyone's listening to different music? Can people still dance together when the song's not the same? There's these kind of interesting questions. And if everyone's walking around wearing headsets with different kind of information and stuff being overlaid onto their vision, does that bring us closer together? Does that kind of separate us if everyone's kind of has their own version of reality, not just through their mind, but actually through what they're seeing, what they're even hearing potentially? You could all be having a family dinner, everyone's sitting around and everyone's listening to different music, everyone's looking at different furniture because, you say, well, I don't want to look at this furniture, I want to get a hologram of this kind of furniture. So just interesting questions as to what we can do with technology that's good and what's maybe would be harmful. Now, the only, I guess, criticism I would have is I feel like, especially in season 2, where I feel like they tried to respond to some of the criticism of season 1. In season 2, it was just kind of a normal family drama slash sitcom where one of the characters happened to have autism. So rather than it being about someone with autism, all the other characters are only kind of seen through that lens. This was just more of a sitcom. And I think what happened was, the one thing that I think that it gets wrong about autism is that it's not that funny. Like, I guess people might read about the symptoms of autism and think that, well, there's a lot of these traits that the comedians have, this kind of randomness. At one point, the character even says, "Oh my God, you're so random." It's kind of very blunt, like saying shocking things, not seeming to realize you're saying something funny. So it's kind of like deadpan humor. You just say something funny without any kind of sense on your face that it's funny. So the characters, and we see this with Sheldon, The Big Bang Theory, can be like very funny and kind of comedic characters, whereas in real life, I don't believe that the people with autism, they could be funny like everyone else is funny, but I don't think their autism actually is funny. And I think it can be, in some ways, it's I guess people think it helps kind of break the ice and introduce us to these characters, but in other ways I think it's not the greatest, especially when he dances. At one point, Sam, he like dances, and I think it's supposed to be like funny because like, oh, he's like, he shouldn't be able to dance like that. He's kind of like a robot, and it's weird that he has this, he can do dance so well. And I thought that wasn't the greatest. It was nicer when he had the ability to draw. Now that was kind of better, but I didn't love the dancing part. So that's all I have to say. Last thing, one of the characters at one point says, Sam's girlfriend calls her grandmother Mima. Now, I know it's a common thing in the South, but I've never heard it on TV or in movies before, except for on The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon Cooper calls his grandma or his mother or something Mima, and I was just wondering, is that like